GMGP, good morning, good people. Y'all could have been anywhere in the world, but y'all decided to wake up with us. You're sick. You're sick in the head. There's a lot of fantasy football shows out there, but I promise y'all, they not like us. Brock Bowers, you looked a little quicker than fast. What does that even mean? Redraft, Dynasty, best ball, high stakes, we got you covered. And that's MVS and Justin Watson with some of the dopest tools designed to help you cancel out the noise and dominate your leagues. If there's a white wide receiver named Antoine, sign me up. Maybe it's cultural. I don't know. In season or off season, rain, sleet, hail, and snow, comma, semicolon, period, next sentence, to bring you the most actionable and entertaining content on YouTube. You don't go buy the dip on the Titanic.
Quarterback that you love, D-Bro. One of the best values in fantasy football.
Prop bets with my man Jay Rich.
Yes! Let's go!
So wipe the crust out of your eye, get you a cup of coffee. It's time to wake y'all asses up with Ray
and Jay
in the morning.
My God.
How good is
Dude.
he? How good is Let's get it, baby. GMGP. It is Friday, September 27, 2024. Y'all decided to wake y'all asses up with Ray and Jay, and we both appreciate each and every eye, each and every ear, each and every listen that we are going to get. Long Beach native, what's happening with you? GMGP said they were working, waiting on me and you, Jay. Shout out to Long Beach native. I see MV Prof in the building. Good morning, fellas. Good morning to you, MV Prof. What's going on? Who else we got in the building? Marlon's in the building. Greg said, Jay, can we talk about DeMarvion Overshown, the young second-year linebacker out of Texas for the Dallas Cowboys? Looked like a damn star last night. Jay, how about them Cowboys, Jay Rich? How about them Cowboys, baby? You feeling good? You feeling good about my squad, Jay Rich?
I wouldn't go that far, my friend, but they did get a dub and they desperately needed it, so good for them.
Come on, man. Stop that, man. Terrell, what's going on with you? GMGP, Leo, what's happening with you? Hey, Zeus, Jeff, what's going on? Kang, the king in the building. Jay, we got a lot to talk about. Football this weekend. Some big matchups in the college football world. We got some big matchups in the NFL world. 2 Monday Night Football games this week. And yes, of course, we got to talk about those Dallas Cowboys and that big win against their NFC East rival, New York Giants. Jay Rich, how you doing this morning, big dog?
I'm good, man. I mean, we saw a great performance from Malik Nabers. We saw Dak Prescott look like, I mean, man, Ray, if he's not playing MVP level football, Cowboys probably ain't winning a single game this season, because it seems like every time they need to play, Dak has to make it. The defense played okay. I mean, that CB2 spot is looking real shaky right now. But outside of that, I think the Cowboys are improving. The run defense was good enough, and that's kind of the big highlight for the Cowboys. But too many air horns for my liking.
We'll talk about
too many air horns for my liking with the Cowboys, because they only did so much. First half was good. Second half, not so much.
Well, make sure y'all are tapped into the content that we're going to drop on the channel over the next couple of days. Shane says a piece talking about Malik Nabers dropped on the channel yesterday. As well, did a usage video talking about some of the usage last week in week 3 and some players that I am looking forward to watching and tracking via our Trinity tracker, which you can find on ddfantasyfootball.com. You see George Pickens up there hoping for a big week. The matchup is prime against Indianapolis this week for George Pickens. And a big Ayuk that I'm not worried about as well. So make sure you check that out on the channel and use the tool. Trust the Trinity, ddfantasyfootball.com. Start Sit Show with Mitch and John Bauer on Sundays. We've got a Dynasty trade show dropping from Ty DeClaire tomorrow, as well as a college football reaction show from our man Gump. So got a lot of content flowing on the channel, podcast feed. Subscribe to that. Jay, hit us with the news, man. There's quite a bit of news, so let's get into that so we can talk about some of the marquee matchups this weekend.
All right, so people, this can be a long one, but Ray, we will get through it. We're starting off with George Kittle, who returned to practice and should be active this week. Along with him, we also saw Deebo Samuel return to practice. Unsure if he's going to play this week for the 49ers, but we should for sure see Kittle, and we maybe potentially could see Deebo Samuel as well. On the Bears front, it was reported by Jeremy Fowler of ESPN that Roschon Johnson, the second-year back out of Texas, is going to get some extended looks. What does that mean for the Bears and this offense? We're not really sure, but we've obviously seen the struggles DeAndre Swift has had so far this year, so we should see some Roschon Johnson and hopefully provide a spark to the Bears running game. The Jets are reportedly going to be working in Mike Williams more into the playbook in the weeks coming forward, so we haven't seen the full iteration of the Jets offense yet. Mike Williams obviously coming back from the injury, and it's slowly being worked more and more into this offense. So we'll see how that impacts Garrett Wilson and Allen Lazard. But I think the big key here is how that potentially could impact Garrett Wilson down the stretch. Russell Wilson's calf injury that he suffered in the preseason is apparently no joke. You know, we all kind of talked about Russell Wilson, whether he should be back, practicing, playing, whatever. But there was reports coming out this week that apparently he shouldn't have been practicing at all during the preseason and definitely not playing. And that re-aggravation actually made things worse for him. Bucky Irving is dealing with a hamstring injury, but he said he is going to play, although he hasn't practiced yet this week. So we'll have to monitor his status going forward. On the Houston Texans front, Ray, this is where we have a lot of issues. Neither Dameon Pierce or Joe Mixon have practiced this week, but Dameon Pierce could potentially be active if for week 4, and then we'll see about Mixon. He is still week to week. And then on the receiver front, Tank Dell is unlikely to play, and Nico Collins popped up on the injury report yesterday with a hamstring injury. So we'll see if Nico Collins is going to be active. He has a great matchup this week, but he could be out as well. So CJ Stroud could be without a lot of players this week. We also have David Njoku, who returned to practice for the Browns, but he hasn't practiced, obviously, since he suffered his high ankle sprain in week 1. So his status is still a little bit uncertain, but we could see Njoku back, which would be great if you have David Njoku. On the Eagles front, neither A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, or Lane Johnson have practiced. A.J. Brown not expected to play. Neither Devonta Smith or Lane Johnson have cleared protocol, but Johnson was seen doing some walkthrough stuff in practice on Thursday. Jordan Love is practicing, Ray, but the Packers have said it will be a game time decision as to whether or not he starts. So we'll see if Jordan Love starts. If he does, that would be great for all of the receivers. If not, I'd probably be benching every single one of them. Jonathan Brooks, Ray, is expected to be ready after his IR stint. We'll see if we see him in week 5. We know he's out weeks 1 to 4, but he potentially could be back in week 5, and it seems like week 6 he should definitely be playing. It'd be 10 months removed from his ACL injury if he is active in week 5. I talked about Deebo Samuel. Keenan Allen also logged a limited practice on Thursday, which sucks because I love Rome Odunze this week if he's inactive. Devontae Adams was added to the injury report for the Raiders with the hamstring injury. Joshua Palmer returned to practice this week and actually practiced in full yesterday, along with Justin Herbert, who did get a limited practice in Thursday. The Chargers are on bye in week 5, so we'll see if Herbert plays. I think they should keep him out, but it seems like he could be trending towards playing. Kenneth Walker also returned to practice, and we're unsure about his status right now and whether or not he is going to be active. Friday will be key for Walker and whether or not he's fully healthy and ready to start from that oblique injury. Have to imagine they want to start him if he's available because Zach Charbonnet has been very ineffective on the ground. Trey McBride is not expected to clear protocol and hasn't practiced yet this week. And Ray, there is a massive matchup in college football, so I'll let you take that because we have Alabama hosting Georgia. And I know you're excited to see Carson Beck play in Tuscaloosa because we have a lot of questions about Carson Beck, and we love ourselves some Jalen Milroe. So maybe you want to talk to the people about that and then anything you want to talk about with all of these injuries.
Yeah, crazy round of injury news that you just recapped, Jay. There was a lot of stuff in there. Kittle being back would be huge for the tight end position overall. We know that it has just been wrecked, decimated this year. So if we can get Kittle back, San Francisco offense versus New England, the matchup isn't as bad as people make it seem. We'll talk about that maybe a little bit later. Devontae Adams, the injury report. What do you think, Jay? What do you think? What do you think there with Adams on the injury report now? Not good. You want Adams to play. Yeah. He's the best receiver out there. But if he doesn't, any interest in Trey Tucker, who had, 7 receptions, 95 yards, touchdown last week, something like that? Are you interested in Trey Tucker at all if Adams is out? Yes or no?
I could be interested in Trey Tucker, yeah, maybe. Okay. I mean, Jacoby Myers is the clear beneficiary, but if they're gonna have to throw it a lot, then yeah, it's not so bad.
How bad is it for CJ Stroud? If Nico Collins, Tank Dell, Mixon is out, how bad is this for CJ Stroud?
I don't know, man. I think they'll be okay. They have a lot of players on that team. Like, what are they gonna put in John Mechie out there? Which he's probably all right, you know. Like, I think the bigger thing is that it's just the continuity of the offense could struggle a bit. But as far as CJ, if they're going to play a lot of man covers like Jacksonville has, I think that they have the playmakers still to kind of get it done. You saw what Diggs did last week. Why can't he have a big game this week, having to step up with a lot of injuries from the rest of the receivers?
All right, Jay, nice stuff. Way to work through all of that news. And yeah, Keenan Allen being back, I talked about it in that YouTube video. Allen, just stay away. Stay away for the sake of Rome Odunze. Stay away, Keenan Allen. Let's talk about the Thursday night football game, Jay. The Dallas Cowboys beat the New York Giants in primetime Thursday night football. It was not a riveting matchup. Not a lot of points scored in that one. I actually took some super unders and they cashed and they hit. I think the big takeaways from this game, Jay, on the Dallas side of the ball, you really can't trust any running back. I know Rico Dowdle scored, but he did little to nothing on the ground in that
Yeah.
matchup. You don't want anybody else. Ezekiel Elliott, no thank you. They finally got rid of Deuce Vaughn. There's way too much volatility with the wide receiver 2, the wide receiver 3. It's truly CeeDee Lamb, Dak Prescott, Jake Ferguson. Is there anybody else on Dallas that you're mildly interested in?
No, I can't say that. If it was anybody, it'd be Rico Dowdle, right? But the volume isn't there.
And that's low.
Even the receiving volume isn't there. But yeah, you say it every week. You can't start a running back on Dallas. He is a, spot starter, deep flex at best.
You're praying for the
simply
TD.
because you saw this week he scored.
You're praying for
and that's
the TD.
Literally it.
You're praying for the TD with Rico. They desperately, and I saw Jordan Reed from ESPN talking about this last night. They need another playmaker. They have to get another weapon opposite CeeDee Lamb. You cannot win with just him on the outside. Giants side of the ball, Jay, Daniel Jones has looked, dare I say, competent now that he has Malik Nabers. I don't think the game was good, but I don't think Jones was awful. He gave Malik Nabers a chance at the end to try to get that one. They couldn't score. They could not convert. Red zone offense was a problem for the Giants last night. But the big takeaway, it's very clear. It's a two-man show. It's Malik Nabers, who is continuing to do ridiculous things, the amount of usage that he's getting, and it's Wan'Dale Robinson. So throughout the season, he's been involved in this offense. It's a two-man show in the Giants offense. What do you got, Jay? You're making some wild facial expressions. You all right over there?
I'm laughing. Well, one, my nose was like burning when I yawned, but the more important thing
all right, man?
is you
were
okay.
You were to get you
disparaging Wan'Dale Robinson after week 1, and yes, you did. You said,
"No, I didn't.
Oh, I don't know about Wan'Dale."
No, we said we want to see if no. After week 1, the usage of he and Nabers were good, and what we said is we want to see some separation between those guys. Week 2, there was a big chasm and a big gap, and then week 3, he came back to sort of doing a little bit more Wan'Dale Robinson stuff. It's not disparaging him. It's we wanted to see some separation. We got that. We know who the one is in this offense. Yeah. Wan'Dale Robinson is a serviceable wide receiver 3 flex option for you in fantasy.
Yeah, 29 of 40 potential attempts for Daniel Jones went to Malik Nabers and Wan'Dale Robinson, which is insane. The problem is like you say the word competent, right? And it's not to disagree with you, but it's also like you can see hey, Daniel, maybe don't throw it past 10 yards. Maybe don't throw it past 15 yards. Because every time he did, he was underthrowing guys or he wasn't on target outside of, when Malik Nabers shook the hell out of that cornerback 2 for Dallas. They're playing it safe. I think Daboll has the right approach with Jones, but it's definitely not a winning approach right now for the New York Giants. So it's a question of, do you continue to play this way, especially in a game where the running game really struggled? Or do you have to kind of open up the offense, throw a bit more down the field, knowing that Jones is going to make more mistakes? Like, how do you think the Giants can approach their offense when, they're 1-4 or they're 1-3 right now, and they probably shouldn't have beat Cleveland, but Cleveland played really bad in that game. How do you feel about this Giants offense going forward beyond Malik Nabers and whether Jones can be the quarterback going forward?
Yeah, I just said it's Nabers and Robinson. I feel good about Malik Nabers and Wan'Dale Robinson moving forward, and Daniel Jones is fine. Like, he's competent enough, I guess. You're talking about winning football games versus fantasy. They're two different things. I think he's fine for what the Giants are trying to do, and he's going to be fine in throwing the ball to the players that we want to see that usage. None of us are running out to start Daniel Jones, but more so him looking competent. It's him being able to support, which you did not believe he'd be able to support Malik Nabers at all this season. So to see that happening right now is a really good thing. But I do want to ask you this question. I'm watching last night. I almost tweeted this out just to get the conversation going. Is there such thing as overuse for a receiver? Do you think the Giants are overusing him? When you're throwing the ball 15, 16, 17 times a game and you're taking those hits, whether you catch it or not, he was concussed on his final reception attempt. Do you think there's a chance that the Giants overuse this rookie wide receiver and it ends up hurting him down the stretch.
I think it's not necessarily overusing him because you want to get him, let's say 12 to 15 a game. But as you mentioned, it's the way they're using him. He's basically being utilized as a slot receiver. It's kind of like how I would say it. It's not so much that he's over the middle, but it's all short and he's getting smoked, whether he catches the ball or not. He's all running a lot of small little hook plays, a lot of drags, maybe a couple slants. He's not running over routes. He's not getting, goal balls down the sideline where he can get out of bounds. Like every single time the ball is anywhere near his vicinity, he's getting hit. And I think that's the bigger problem for Malik Nabers is that you see the way a lot of these guys are utilized. You watch the way that Marv is utilized. He's not getting a lot of short stuff. He's not running a lot of drag routes and doing things after the catch. Nabers is literally doing everything for the offense. He's coming out of the backfield. He's catching short passes. So I think he's just getting hit a lot. And so whether that's play calling,
usage.
whether that's Daniel
when you get
Jones,
hit when
right?
You're used. That's called use. That's called usage. When you get hit, that's called usage.
Okay, but when you compare him to Jefferson and Chase and like these high-level outside receivers, like, do you think Malik Nabers can play like Amon-Ra St. Brown, where we've seen Amon-Ra get banged up throughout the season because he's going over the middle, taking a lot of hits? I think to some extent, your point about him potentially being like quote-unquote punch drunk, by the end of the season, he's probably going to be where Amon-Ra is, really banged up, struggling, and, just getting hit a ton.
Well, I'm not – you take it 5 steps too far. I'm not saying he's going to struggle. I'm not saying he's going to turn to dust. I'm just watching the impact and the hits of this young player and how much the Giants are asking him to do early and just asking the question, is there such thing as, do you need to pace him? We love when Cooper Kupp gets 20 receptions, but that's putting that player at risk of 20 additional hits, 15 more additional tackles, which could be a hip drop, which could be an ankle. What I'm asking is it a little bit too much? Should they find another option outside of Wan'Dale Robinson and Malik Nabers to keep him there? I mean, 50 targets through 4 games is pretty wild.
Yeah, I mean, I think someone said in the chat, it's Robert. He's like, or someone said in the chat, or Stone actually, do they even have a choice, right? If they want to compete, if they want to win, they got to get the ball to Malik Nabers. And it's just, can he handle that kind of workload? It's a fair question because he's, at the end of the games, he looks exhausted. Like exhausted. Yeah, and the last game and the game prior against Washington, remember, he dropped that pass and it's like, it's his 16th target. And this one, he got the concussion. And it's just, it sucks because he's a great player, but maybe that volume is taking a toll on him to some extent.
I don't know. We love it for fantasy football, but just know that what we're watching, the product that's on the field, the guys that are out there playing, it is not Madden. They feel it. They are banged up. It does hurt. They are sore. It is difficult to move. It is not just give me 20 targets a game and I'll be fine. So I was watching it and just thinking, man, I hope they don't misuse him or overuse him and he just breaks down because he's still a rookie. He's 20 years old. As good as he's been, he's still just 4 games into his young career. And we all just want to see him on the field for as long as possible. I think that's the big thing. We love the production. We know he's a stud. I hope they don't misuse him and overuse him and we end up losing him down the stretch. Anything else from the Thursday night game you want to talk about that was impactful, something to take away, glean from moving forward in fantasy? Wasn't a lot in this one, Jay. It's the superstar pass catchers, the ancillary piece on the Giants, no running game in Dallas. Singletary didn't play very well last night. The defense stepped it up for Dallas, but I don't think there's a lot more from this game.
No, I think for me, it's just, what we see from Dak Prescott weekly. I was expecting a bit of a bigger game from him. They kind of played it a little conservative in the second half, which surprised me. But I do expect Dak to be, a top 10 option going forward. But it was definitely a surprise. They kind of took their foot off the gas and they almost paid for it. But I think that's the more concerning part is I expect Dak to be in that probably 260 to 300 a game, depending on the game script. It was a better game script for them, but considering they still couldn't run the ball very well, I thought they would use Dak a little bit more and use CD a little bit more. Only 8 targets for CD was a little bit surprising, and he did a little bit out of the backfield as well.
Yeah, I just want to hit this comment from Baxter right here. I thought this was an interesting comment, and it's some of the stuff that I'm looking at too whenever I'm watching the game. He said you can't throw it to him 20 times on just 5-yard curls and slants, and that's what I'm talking about, the usage, right? When you're only running those short things to where he's not getting those easy out routes to where he can just catch it and go out of bounds. He is going across the middle. He's taking hits. He's getting hit by the safeties because he's running those hitches and those curls. So it's just one of those things where I was just noticing it watching the game last night, Jay. But we got some good marquee matchups, some nice over-under point totals that we should hopefully get some fantasy scoring this week. And you talked about one of the teams that are going to be down, both alpha wide receivers, the Philadelphia Eagles taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So this might just be Saquon Barkley season, Jay Rich. Let's talk about it. Tampa Bay versus Philadelphia. Let's pull up the screen. Tampa Bay, Philly, Jay. Let's talk about it. 43-point over-under total in this one. Philly's favored by 1.5. How are we feeling about this matchup? Do Baker Mayfield and the Bucs get it on track? And how the hell do the Eagles get this thing done with no Lane Johnson, no A.J. Brown, no Devontae Smith? Where are we at fantasy-wise out of this game? RB1? Saquon?
I mean, yeah, bell cow Saquon once again. I mean, how do you not have him as RB1? Because he's just going to be heavily involved. Once again, Dallas Goedert, fire him up as tight end 1 because we saw it last week. He's probably going to get a crap load of targets. I think the question is like, what does Jalen Hurts do? Do we see Jahan Dotson be heavily involved in the game plan? Because they actually had like a full week to kind of maybe plan some plays for him and get him prepared for a heavier workload. And I think that's the biggest question because in a lot of ways, even though it's only 1.5 point spread, like I kind of want to take the Bucs. You know, I like the Eagles. I think the Eagles have a good team. I think they can get it done. I think their defense played a lot better this week. But if we get those Eagles that are a little shaky in the secondary, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin are going to kill them. Even though Baker's been not playing so well, like he could get it going against this Eagles defense if they're not on their shit. So my question to you is like, from a fantasy aspect, you're starting Mike Evans, you're starting Chris Godwin in most places. But how do you feel about Baker Mayfield against this Eagles secondary, knowing he's had 2 bad weeks and really hasn't looked good outside of the game against the Commanders?
Yeah, looking at some of the matchup stuff, looking at this Bucs offense versus Philly's defense, you get the advantage. Quick passing game, the advantage is to the Buccaneers and Baker Mayfield. 7th in the Buccaneers offense according to Next Gen Stats versus the 27th ranked defense against quick passing. For Tampa Bay. So there's advantage Baker Mayfield, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans. Yeah, I mean, we know that you can throw the ball on Philadelphia to a degree, but you can also run the ball on Tampa Bay. And that's what Philadelphia is probably going to do. They're number 1 in running from out of the shotgun. Number 1 rushes inside the tackles, going against a bottom 5 defense at defending the run. It's all green light. When you see this right here, it's Saquon Barkley, it's Jalen Hurts, Jay. That's where I'm at from the Philadelphia side. Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, Dallas Goedert to be ranked really high this week, getting utilized a lot. And then the Tampa Bay side, I mean, you're still firing up Godwin and Evans. What about Rachaad White? This Rachaad White, Bucky Irving situation.
I mean, you could start Rachaad White if you want, but the volume is just not even there from the pass catching aspect, right? Like last year it was good because you saw he was catching, 4 or 5 passes a game, getting 6, 7 targets, but now he's still an inefficient runner, which we all kind of expected. But when Bucky Irving is even taking those like couple of carries that he might have got in the past, it's a bit of a problem. So I think he's a back end RB2 this week, maybe even an RB3. I would honestly, in some ways, rather start Bucky Irving than Rachaad White if I knew that Bucky Irving was going to get like 10 carries, because I think he's got a pretty good shot to score. But Rachaad White has slightly higher touchdown upside, and maybe he'll get it done in the passing game, but it doesn't seem like they're passing as much this year to Rachaad White.
Yeah, Bucky's look good as well. Now, you talked about it in the news section that he's got a little bit of a hamstring. He told the people that he will be ready to play on Sunday. Do you feel confident enough against this difficult run defense to throw Bucky Irving out there?
Not yet. No, I don't think the usage has been good enough.
So. Yeah,
the usage hasn't been good enough. If he was getting, like I said, if he was getting maybe 12 touches a game, I'd say, okay, he can maybe be a flex. But without him kind of having that goal line role solidified just yet, I don't think we want to do that. And especially the matchup isn't great either. But I think there will be a point where Bucky Irving is the preferred running back for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
And just because people are going to ask the question, any interest in any of the other Philadelphia pass catchers, Johnny Wilson, Jahan Dotson, Paris Campbell?
I think you could look at reports and see, follow some beat reporters, because there is a world where Jahan Dotson catches like 5 passes for 60 yards. That's fine, right? That's fine for fantasy. You don't love it because you don't think the upside's really going to be there, but someone has to get the ball other than Dallas Goedert because chances are they're going to throw the ball. and
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
who it is. And I would bet. But then the other thing, Ray, is do they use Gainwell kind of in the slot a bit?
I
That's
don't
another thing that I thought maybe they use Gainwell some more because he knows the offense so well.
I
Because
don't know
Saquon's
how
going to be
many
used, but
times
maybe they use Gainwell as well.
I don't know how many times we've seen Philly without AJ Brown and Devontae Smith. So
I don't think there's a single
I
game
don't
that's
think
happened yet.
I don't think we've seen both of them out at the same time. And I did see in the chat that the guy from the Saints, who whatever the player was, I think it was 9'8", that hit Devontae Smith late was fine. So the NFL did find that player for the late hit on Devontae Smith. Yep, fire up those Eagles, and then you are firing up your Mike Evans, your Chris Godwin, Baker Mayfield, not inside our top 15 quarterbacks for the week. At least not inside of mine.
Oh,
I don't think so. Did he make
I
it?
wanted to. He
Okay.
didn't make it in mine, but
Okay,
I didn't want to
good.
get burned like I did
Good.
last week by Baker.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, no thank you. No thank you. All right, Jay, this is a game between both teams who have combined one win, but it is, I believe, the highest projected total on the slate this weekend, or one of the highest. And I think there's some fantasy sneaky appeal in this one, Jay. Let's go to it. Carolina and Cincinnati. We got the Bengals traveling to Carolina. Carolina got their first win. Cincinnati dropped that home one to the Commanders on primetime last week. Here we go. 47-point total. Bengals are favored by 4.5 in this matchup. Jay Rich, just right off the rip, gut feel, who you starting from this game for the Panthers? Gut feel. Right now, no information. Gut feel, who you firing up from Carolina?
I'm starting Deontay and Chuba for sure. And I don't think I would go down to Leggett, even though I'm considering it like as another flex option because of how well that we saw Carolina play and Andy Dalton. I think Andy Dalton is a fine spot starter. I love the revenge game narrative for him against Cincinnati, but I don't think you can confidently start anybody else for Carolina. Do you feel any differently?
Confidently, no. But if you're saying there's going to be 47 points scored in this game, you look at this Bengals defense. I mean, you look at the advantages on this one. You look at the Bengals defense, the Carolina Panthers offense versus this defense, and then vice versa. More importantly, the Bengals offense versus this porous Carolina defense. There will be points scored in this matchup. And I don't believe that Deontay Johnson is going to be the only one to catch the ball. Andy Dalton's a pro's pro. He can distribute the ball all over the field. I think there's a sneaky world where Leggett is a flex option. He played better with Andy Dalton. No Adam Thielen in this matchup. Again, 47 points. Who's scoring? It's not all Burrow. It's not all Cincinnati, is it? They couldn't stop the Commanders last week.
No, they couldn't, but it also took a very efficient, grinded out kind of game from the Commanders to really get there, and the points still weren't crazy. I think this total is a little bit high, personally. I'd be going the under at 47.5 because Cincinnati, we'll see how they play against this Carolina defense. We expect them to play well, but we say that every week, and they don't really get it done for us. So if T. Higgins isn't quite that great and Andre Yoshivas is kind of only okay again, and they don't really have to play catch-up, it really depends on how this Bengals defense plays. I think the Carolina offense will be okay. We know who to start there. There's a lot of guys to play for Cincinnati that are getting opportunities, but I don't know about that 47-point over-under. It feels like it's probably going to go under, and so I wouldn't bank on this crazy high-scoring game, but there is always that opportunity because of how bad the Bengals defense played. If they were playing well, then you'd probably see this scenario where it probably could go a bit higher to the total, but I'm kind of leaning the under for both teams.
Well, to your point about Chuba Hubbard, right now the Cincinnati Bengals defense has allowed the second most yards after contact on runs behind the line of scrimmage. So if they're hit behind they're allowing the second most. So Chuba Hubbard's got an opportunity to capitalize on some of the poorest tackling by the defense. But man, Jay, it felt like last week was the get right game for the Bengals versus the Commanders defense. This should be like get right game part 2 because this offense is very good. They are moving the ball in the passing attack. No, they are. Long passing, they're number 8. Deep passing, they're 4th in the league. According to Next Gen Stats, play action, they're 5th in the league. So they can push the ball down the field. It hasn't equated to Jamar Chase, but he is. Mike Gesicki's involved. T. Higgins got involved in the action. Yoshi Voss in the red zone. And then Jamar Chase. This could be another get right opportunity for the Cincinnati Bengals. All I'll say is if they lose this one, it's probably like panic button in Cincinnati. I mean, you're going to get full-on Jamar Owens if they lose this one, Jay.
Yeah, I mean that's the numbers are great, but honestly, watching this Cincinnati Bengals offense, they didn't look good against New England. They didn't look good this past week in an amazing matchup against the Commanders. I think play calling is a huge issue for them. They need to establish more of a running game clearly. I don't know. Like the numbers are kind of are what they are, and I'm not going to dispute them. But I wouldn't say this offense has looked great outside of Kansas City, where maybe Kansas City's defense isn't as good as we kind of thought they'd be coming
Man,
in.
when
I
you
think we
put
need to see
here's my
something from
thing.
them.
Look good or great. You put up 33 points, I'm not going to get on the offense. Like they put up 33 points. They didn't punt the ball. They didn't. By great, I don't know what your expectation is, 50 points, but they put up 33. They put up 33. So I think you are a little. First of all, I don't think you watched any of the games, so I don't know where you're getting that from. But the offense can move the ball. They're not very good at running it. Zach Moss played better this week, but they can throw the ball. Versus the Patriots, I believe Joe Burrow put it right on Tanner McClain. He fumbles at the goal line. Mike Gesicki doesn't catch the damn ball in the end zone. So I'm not as bearish on this Cincinnati offense as clearly you are, and I'm definitely not worried about the Carolina Panthers versus them in this matchup, Jay. Anything else from this one? You said no Leggett. Deontay's a must start. T. Higgins versus Yoshi Voss. Who you playing? T versus
T.
Yoshi
Higgins.
Voss.
T. Higgins.
All right. All right, there it is. Let's talk about Baltimore, Jay. Baltimore versus Buffalo. This should be a very good matchup. I mean, you got the reigning MVP and what looks like
And
at least he's playing like the 2024 MVP and Josh Allen. Talk about this one. Talk about those two quarterbacks, Allen versus Lamar Jackson. What are your expectations? Sunday night, it's a big game, Jay. Primetime game, Sunday Night Football. Ravens and the Bills. Bills looking like shit. One of the best teams in the NFL right now, man.
Yeah, big test for the Ravens, right? We know that this Buffalo offense is probably going to show up. We don't know who's going to get the ball, but we know Josh Allen's going to show up. We know James Cook's going to show up, and those pass catchers are going to be heavily involved. But the question remains, Ray, is what do you expect from the Baltimore Ravens? I mean, I have high expectations for Lamar Jackson. I think he's going to have a great game. We saw what happened against Kansas City. I think we see a similar approach in this game because they have to win. They can't afford to drop this game against Buffalo, even though it's a tough game. We know that they do not want to lose this game, especially at home. Sunday night spot, blackout game in Baltimore. It's a big, big matchup. But outside of the two quarterbacks, I don't know how much I trust Zay Flowers. I don't know how much I trust King Henry. I think it could be a bit of a low-scoring game. Which way would you lean between more of a high-scoring or a low-scoring game with that 46.5-point over-under?
Well, the Bills right now, they lead the NFL in points per game, 37 points per game. Point differential, they're number one in the league, plus 64. And we know they can only play who's on their schedule. In this offense, Josh Allen, the way that he's playing right now, he just feels unstoppable, Jay. When we look at this, like, I'm not even joking, just number ones down the line. Intermediate passing, Buffalo 1. Overall passing efficiency, Buffalo 1. Passing versus no pressure, 1. Passing versus play action, 1. Passing versus the blitz, 1. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, all the way down the board for Buffalo's offense versus a Ravens defense that has not looked the same without Mike McDonald. It is not this fearsome, you cannot move the ball against this defense. They're in the bottom half of the league right now, and everything from a passing standpoint. I think Buffalo's the real damn deal. And Josh Allen is proving to everybody that he is, in fact, a truck nowhere close to a trailer, a Mack truck. I think the shot that Baltimore does have, they've got to run the ball. You talked about not knowing how to feel about King Henry. Well, this Ravens rushing offense, the same way we were going 1, 1, 1, 1, 1 down the line with Buffalo, hell, it's 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3 for Baltimore's rushing offense versus a Bills rushing defense that is not very good. So it's who's going to bend, who's going to break. Baltimore needs to go out there and play their style of football, which is run the ball, establish it with Lamar and Derrick Henry. And the Buffalo Bills, I expect them to do what they do best, is play through Josh Allen, let James Cook do his thing. Now, Baltimore's a little better versus the run than Buffalo is versus the run. But James Cook, real deal as well, Jay. So when you're talking about Lamar and Josh Allen, I expect that we see the best versions of both of those players in this game. I think they're both going to do the things that they do well at a very high level because the defenses sort of dictate that.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Buffalo, 16 points per game to Baltimore's 26. I think it's just whether or not Buffalo can once again absolutely destroy opponent in the first half. And I don't necessarily expect that from Baltimore. I expect a pretty good game plan, a tight game. Obviously they're number one in rushing, Baltimore is, because Lamar is rushing at an insane rate right now. But that's where I have more fears is like you pull up the numbers of the rushing stats and it's like, well, yeah, they're very high because Lamar contributes to that as well. And I think we could see a similar game like we saw in Kansas City where if King Henry doesn't get in the end zone, we're kind of like, man, it was a so-so game. And he didn't and wasn't involved as much as you like, because if they're out of this game, and you brought it up, Buffalo, best team in the league. If they get ahead, King Henry's involvement in the game is going to be down the shitter once again, like we saw in Kansas City. So that's my only fear with Henry. Love Lamar. I think I have him as QB3 this week. And of course, Josh Allen is up at number 1. But do you trust any of the Bills pass catchers outside of maybe Dalton Kincaid because he's a tight end?
Khalil Shakir.
More so in the wide receivers.
Khalil Shakir. I'm fine playing Khalil Shakir as a mid-range to low-range wide receiver too. He's being utilized in that offense. His scores, utilization, Trinity scores pretty solid. And then when you look at some of the other peripheral metrics around like yards after the catch over expectation, he's playing pretty well for the opportunity that has been given. I see some people in the chat talking about Rashad Bateman and his usage score, and it's crazy because you watch the games. He is being thrown. He's being used. They're throwing him the ball. I think he had a couple of end zone targets versus Dallas as well. Lamar couldn't connect with him.
Scored one last week, right?
I don't think he's very good, but they're using him. They're using him, Jay. Now, what is that going to equate to when, this is an offense that would you be surprised if they threw the ball 22 times? So then now you're banking on low volume and him being a highly efficient player. It's one of those things where you still have to look at the situation and say, how much of this pie is it worth, right? How much is 30% of 20 targets really worth? 30% of 39 targets is a bigger deal than 30% of 20 targets. So Bateman's still being used. There's not a lot of pass catchers I trust. How do you feel about Mark Andrews? I don't think I have him inside my top 8 this week, Jay. I don't believe so where I ranked him.
Yeah, I don't think you ranked him that high either. But yeah, him and Likely are both in that touchdown or bust type of situation. I think they both can score, but I'm not banking on a ton of, if any, yards beyond that. Obviously, Andrews' involvement is very concerning. But against Buffalo, they're going to have to utilize somebody. And especially as you brought up, if we believe the Buffalo is going to get ahead and they're going to have to throw the ball, that's where the upside, especially for Isaiah Likely, I think exists in this game environment. Mark Andrews is a big question mark. I think both are kind of touchdown or bust to some extent.
Has there been any news as to why he didn't play? Like, what was it? Just the game script? They just didn't need, because they didn't throw the ball a lot. They threw the ball 15 times, 14 times. 15, so let's not act like Lamar just threw the ball 100 times and then Mark Andrews didn't do anything. They did not throw the ball at all. But have you seen anything, any kind of information out?
And maybe it could be protecting him, right? He had that injury coming into the season. Maybe he's still playing through that. And then a game where they're blowing out the Cowboys, why even have him out there, right? You can put in Likely. Clearly, they're more than confident and likely to kind of handle that tight end position. And they have other guys that can fill in the blocking role. So maybe it is just a simple fact of protecting Mark Andrews going forward.
Is this the last week? Because as we sit, let's just throw all the advanced metrics out there. You've got Mark Andrews, right? You've got Mark Andrews on a team where you do not have any dominant profile type outside wide receiver. Like, he's got to be involved, right? He's got, outside of something being wrong with him, just football sense. They've got to get him involved in this offense. The Ravens are, 1-2 right now in the season? They got to get him involved. So, do you believe, just in your screw what the numbers and all of that, do you believe that it's more of just an outlier start for Mark Andrews? Or are you like, nah, Ray, 3 games in? And if you say you're not buying into him, I want you to just give me, do you think it's the offense or is it him? Like, he's not that good anymore.
I think he still has the potential to be great. It's just we haven't heard anything. So I feel like we're kind of in limbo right now. I want to say he's probably just hurt. I think last week's game script didn't help, but especially against the Chiefs, if he was healthy, he should have been seeing a ton of targets. But then there's the people are watching the film. They're saying, well, he's being covered a lot. He's being bracketed. They're really trying to take him out of the game plan. So they went to Isaiah Likely. But it's just, I don't know, man. It seems like he's being utilized as a bit of a decoy. And then in games where they really don't need him, he's not playing. So I think we're kind of in limbo until we get any information as to kind of what's going on. And, it's happened in the NFL sometimes. It could be week 13 and we hear, he wasn't healthy for the first 8 weeks of the season. He was just gutting through it, and now he's ready to go for the playoff run. So I think you're just kind of in wait and see right now.
Some people in the chat, some of our viewers said that it was game script. They said it was game.
Which makes sense.
But Kohler was in at the beginning of the game. I think he got one of the first damn receptions. Like, why the hell is number 88 getting the ball? So I think this is the week, Jay. It should happen for Mark Andrews this week. If it doesn't happen here, week 4, then I think you really, really adjust your expectation for him moving forward, knowing that he's probably still going to have some random spike week. But 3 weeks in, he is just not being used right now, which is just a problem because we have not seen this. We have not been accustomed to this from Mark Andrews since the time he came into the NFL. No other takeaways for me from this one, Jay. We got over 300 people in here checking us out. We got a couple of more games that we want to get to and maybe talk about some potential trap games and trap players on the fantasy slate this weekend. We're going to talk about some of those trap players, Jay, right after the break. Y'all run it up. Hit the like button. We'll be right back. Appreciate y'all pulling up and waking up with myself and Jay Rich today. This is the show we run every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. If y'all can, hit that thumbs up button, like the content, and subscribe to the channel. Help us grow. We appreciate you being here. Stay tapped into everything that we do on this channel and the DD Radio podcast feed, where we got all kinds of content dropping literally 7 days a week. Jeff Mueller Injury Pod. Make sure you tap into that. When's that drop? Sunday morning, Jay, the injury show?
Usually Saturday evening is when
Saturday evening. Yeah. And I lied to the people, Jay. That was that Cincinnati Bengals, Carolina Panthers matchup was not the highest projected total on the weekend. Is this one? It's the Commanders and the Cardinals. So we get some Kyler Murray, Jaden Daniels, Marv. Get that B-Rob, James Conner. 50 points with the Cardinals favored by 3.5 at home. The Cardinals 1-2. The Commanders 2-1 in the NFC East. Jay, we got 2 dynamic quarterbacks, Kyler Murray, Jaden Daniels. Who you got ranked higher? I got JD5 at QB2 on the week.
You do have JD5 ranked higher. I still have Kyler Murray higher than Jaden Daniels this week.
I got where do I got Jaden at? 2 or 3? He's up there.
Him at 2.
Got him at 2. I am drinking the Kool-Aid. 26 points a game, 5th in the league for the Commanders, 27 points per game by the Cardinals. So this should be a matchup, Jay, where we get fantasy goodness. And despite the fact that we are disappointed and hurt that Trey McBride is not playing, I mean, we have been very pleased with Marvin Harrison's output post week 1, but the volume hasn't been there. We want to see him get peppered with some damn targets. Is this the week with no Trey McBride versus this porous defense that we see the Marv blow-up game? I'm talking Juwan Jennings, Malik Nabers. He's getting 7, 8, 9 receptions, 150, 160 yards. Is this the week that we see it happen?
I mean, come on, Ray. He's got 22 targets, and the first week was rough, but he's been playing a little bit better.
I want more receptions, baby.
I know you do. You want to see the volume go up. I mean, you look at the targets, 3 targets, 8 targets, 11 targets, and everyone knows this is the matchup. This is what I preach every week. This is what I talk about. And yeah, I'm going to be, I mean, I have him as my wide receiver too. So that's how I feel about Marvin Harrison Jr. I got him for 150 and 2 in this game. I think he's going to see a ton of volume, a ton of work. Take the overs on Marv. He's going to hit them for sure. He's just been phenomenal this year. almost 20, Ray, yards per reception for Marvin Harrison Jr. right now. 10 receptions, 198 yards, 3 touchdowns in his limited action so far. I love Marv this week. The Washington Commanders absolutely bleed to wide receivers, and I also have Michael Wilson as a wide receiver 2 this week, especially with Trey McBride out. So you look at the success of wide receivers against the Commanders, it's not just one, usually it's multiples. I think both Michael Wilson and Marvin Harrison Jr. eat against the Commanders defense.
Jay, look at the advantages for both passing offenses. You look at the Commanders' passing offense, whether it's short, deep, intermediate, top 5 in the NFL. The Cardinals' defense at defending that, bottom 5 in the NFL. You flip the page, look at the Cardinals, number 2 short, number 1 against no blitz, number 11 in play action, number 5 in long passing. You look at the Cardinals, 31, 32, 32, 30, 32, 32. This should just be a game where Kyler Murray and Jaden Daniels do whatever the hell they want to do. Feed Terry McLaurin, feed Marvin Harrison. I'm with you. I think Michael Wilson is a fine play this week. James Conner should find some room as well to run. He and Brian Robinson. I'm in on this game. This is the one where we should get the points, the scoring bonanza. Give me the weapons on both sides. And when you talk about the Commanders, no Austin Eckler. So it is Brian Robinson season in this offense for this week. Jay, I'm liking all these players from this one, man.
Yeah, I don't think there's really any sneaky starts here. Some people are asking about Zach Ertz in the chat. Zach Ertz for Mark Andrews. I would start Zach Ertz 100%. If you have him, I'd be pretty surprised if you had another tight end who is comparable or is better than him, but maybe you do. But I like Zach Ertz as a start this week. Because again, the matchup against the Cardinals is still a fine one. The question is there anybody else? Because we're getting bell cow Brian Robinson and bell cow Connor for sure. But then, Michael Wilson's fine. Marv is fine. How do you feel about Terry, though? Because Terry I had trouble ranking this week. I don't know if the volume is suddenly going to go sky high. Because without that touchdown last week, he did miss him on a touchdown. But it's still not quite high enough to where I'm like, yeah, you should put him in the top 15, top 16. Because to the credit of the Cardinals, their defensive numbers don't look great, but they also had to play the Bills. And so that's going to hurt a bit. And they played very well against the Lions last week. They did not allow a lot of points against the Lions. Amon-Ra St. Brown was the only player who really did well. And so that's where you look at the Cardinals and say they shut down the Rams receivers.
Ranked the same. I got McLaurin at 20. You got McLaurin at 19. So we're both. I think you have to. It was his third game. We gotta give a little bit of grace and patience, man. It takes some time for the chemistry to get together. It's a rookie quarterback. It's a new system. It's a new offense that McLaurin has to learn. And Jaden Daniels did miss him on another deep pass. So I don't expect him to have 2-3 touchdowns every week. But we were talking in our Discord. You know how you defeat the 2 high safeties? You have to attack it. You have to attack it. You can get past them. You can throw the ball on safeties. And we saw Daniels do that last week. I think it continues. I think he continues to progress, get Terry McLaurin involved in the offense. So I've got him at 20. You got him at 19. That's how we feel about him.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the way that they played the past 2 weeks. The Cardinals defense, they shut down the Rams, and then they did a pretty good job shutting down the Lions, but credit to the Lions, they ran the hell out of the ball and were very effective with it. So I think we do see a lot of Brian Robinson. I really like him this week, wanted to rank him even higher, but if he has a 2-touchdown, 120-yard performance on like 25 carries, don't be surprised.
All right, we got 2 Monday night games, so we're not going to talk about Seattle, Detroit, and we're not going to talk about Tennessee, Miami. We'll do that on Monday's show. Really quickly, Jay, Cleveland versus Las Vegas. Anything in that one that you are excited about? I've got a sneaky play on the weekend from that game. A player who popped up last week and it was late, didn't do shit the first 2 weeks. But, he's kind of like the only ticket in town in Cleveland. I think Amari Cooper is a solid start this week. I do not mind Amari Cooper this week. I know the Browns' passing offense has been abysmal, but it's very clear you probably need to throw number 2 the ball, and you need to do it before the fourth quarter. I think Cooper's a sneaky play versus this Raiders defense this week.
Yeah, the Raiders defense isn't very good. We both have him ranked at 13 overall in the wide receiver rankings, and we will get the rest of those out later today. But yeah, he's a great start. I'm definitely on board. The usage last week was encouraging. As much as Judy's getting targets, Amari Cooper is going to be the guy in that offense. Expect another double-digit targets from him and a pretty good shot at a touchdown.
Yeah, another sneaky start. Sneaky. And I'm even thinking about sneaking him in there, even if the old veteran is active. That's how good I feel about the usage, the way this player was trending, and how disappointed I was to see that this old man was back at practice. But Romo Dunze, I think even with Keenan Allen on the field, Jay, the
Ooh.
way that he has been trending, his usage, his Trinity score the first 3 weeks of the season continues to go up, up, and up. We know that this Bears defense, this Bears team was in catch-up mode versus the Colts, which made them throw the ball a ton. But the Rams offense versus this Bears defense, they should be able to find some success. The Bears defense has not been good against the pass. And you know what? I'm just not fading Kyron Williams ever again. As long as he's on the field, he is bell cow Kyron. It doesn't matter. So there should be points on both sides of this one. The total, according to DraftKings, 40.5 points. I don't trust Keenan Allen. I don't trust that his health is right where it needs to be. He was limping around the last time we saw him on the field. Do not stunt and slow down Rome Odunze's development for Keenan Allen on a team that probably ain't going to make the playoffs. Let Odunze play. I still think that even with Keenan Allen playing, I would be all right flexing Rome Odunze in this matchup versus the Rams.
Yeah, I'm not really worried about Keenan Allen at all. I have Romo Dunze ranked very aggressively at wide receiver 16 and DJ Moore in the top 10. This Rams defense is right there with the Commanders. When you talk about targeting players and looking at what's already happened this season, every single week a receiver's gone off. Last week, it was Jawan Jennings. This week, it's probably going to be either DJ Moore or Romo Dunze, and it might be both. That's why if you have Caleb, this is the perfect opportunity to start Caleb Williams. As much as I'm not a big fan of the offense, this is a very exploitable matchup, especially at the wide receiver position, and that's why you have to love Romo Dunze and DJ Moore this week. I think that they can be supported by Caleb very easily, and I really like the matchup against the Rams. They need a big win. Caleb needs a big performance, and I don't think they hesitate to air it out against this terrible Rams secondary.
Yeah, it's not good, Jay. It's not good. Let's talk about a trap player of the week, Jay. And I just wanna bring this one up because we continue.
This is not gonna age well.
Well,
just know it's not.
No, well, it's actually aged quite well over the past couple of years, but we continue to do this. We fire him up as a top 3 option every single week. He's QB5, QB3, QB4. This week versus the Los Angeles Chargers, I just want to ask the question: is this a little bit of a trap game on the road for Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs? We continue to put Mahomes out there as a QB1, and it's not coming to fruition. Whether it's Xavier Worthy's young, Travis Kelce is cooked, it is truly Rashee Rice or bust on that offense right now. And I know the Chargers, I believe they are down Derwin James in this matchup. I believe Derwin James is out. I'm not sure where Joey Bosa is, which, both of those guys being out, that's a big detriment to that Chargers defense. But assuming that Bosa's out there, just what do you think about KC's offense versus what has been so far through the season, statistically, a very good Los Angeles Chargers defense?
Yeah, obviously I've talked about how the Chargers are a better team than I think people give them credit for right now. But the most concerning thing with Mahomes is that he plays against the Chargers very well. And say what you want about the new defense and all these things, but his last 5 games, Ray, he has an average of 3 touchdowns and, based off my quick math, I'd say at least 300 yards against the Chargers. So when you're talking about a guy who has basically averaged 303 against a team over the past 5, and for his entire career, 281.5 yards and 2.5 touchdowns per game, regardless of when he plays the Chargers, he dominates them. And I think the biggest problem with Mahomes is if any player was going to throw for 3 touchdowns a week, it would be him. This lack of running game, especially knowing that Greg Roman and John Harbaugh are on the other side, they're probably going to stop the running game. They're going to force Mahomes to pass. And I think that's where you have the issue of he can have a big game simply because of touchdowns. And it's not that I think that you should be ranking him in the top 5, top 6, but I don't know if we can fade him simply because we know the upside is 250 and 3, and that's probably a top 10 performance.
What is the upside? What is the upside with no number 2 wide receiver? What is it? No tight end. What is the upside? No running back. What is? I'm not disagreeing with you, but we keep saying this up. And what is it? What is it? What does that look like right now? Does it look like Rice getting 3 touchdowns? Does it look like Worthy bombs? we keep
I think
saying
the
this.
upside is what you see from Josh Allen every week, right? Like, he's basically in the same spot. I'd say Josh Allen has a much worse supporting cast, but the way that Kelsey's playing, he basically only has Rashee Rice. And so it's like, do you think Mahomes can do what Allen does minus obviously the rushing? Okay. And I think he can.
In the chat, Mahomes or Kyler? Who you starting this week?
Kyler.
But Mahomes or Jaden Daniels?
Jaden Daniels.
Mahomes or Brock Purdy?
I believe I have Mahomes over Purdy, but it's close. I have Mahomes a little higher than you do right now. I have Mahomes at 9. You have Mahomes at 11.
Okay.
But you do have Brock Purdy over Mahomes.
I do. All right, Jay, let's talk about the trap game, potentially. Is this we're excited about Jordan Love potentially coming back, but Green Bay, Minnesota, Brian Flores defense, if Love plays or if he doesn't, how do you feel about the Packers? Let's say Love plays. Love is in. Versus Brian Flores. He hadn't played in a couple of weeks. You already know he's healthy and active, but he's not 100%. He ain't what he felt like before the knee injury. Would you feel good and confident about playing Jaden Reed, Christian Watson, Dontavian Wicks versus this defense with a not 100% Jordan Love? And then conversely, Jordan Love's out and it's Malik Willis. Would you play anybody if it's Malik Willis versus this Brian Flores Minnesota Vikings-led defense?
So the only player for me, kind of regardless of situation, would be Jaden Reed. I've talked about how the slot has been the best option when you talk about fantasy attacking the Minnesota Vikings. They're going to blitz, and the slot has been where they've been most susceptible. We talked about it with Wan'Dale Robinson in week 1. We saw it with Stephon Diggs this past week. So if Jaden Reed's going to be running out of the slot, I don't think it's going to matter whether it's Malik Willis or is Jordan Love. Obviously, if it's Jordan Love, I much prefer my ranking of where I have Jaden Reed right now. But if it was Malik Willis, I think that Matt LaFleur knows he has to attack the slot, get it out early. But outside of that, no, I wouldn't be starting anybody else. I thought about Romeo Doubs if Jordan Love is active. But the question for me, Ray, is would you start Jordan Love? Because I really want to. Like, I think if he's active, I would want to start him.
No.
But it is difficult depending on who your options are.
No. I would not start him first game back versus this defense. No, sir. I would not start him. I would not start Jaden Reed. He would be on the bench. I would not start any Green Bay Packer outside of Josh Jacobs, and I really wouldn't feel good about doing that versus this defense. I would not play them.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not in on Jacobs, not against this defense, but I consider Reed because I think the Reed's going to have a good game. And obviously, I expect a lot of points out of this game.
And let me say it like this.
Very excited to watch it.
Let me say it like this, because I think we're so cavalier. Oh, I wouldn't play him. And then people are like, well, who? If you don't have any other option, you got to play him. But if I've got other options, if there's some other RB options, I would prefer to use those guys versus the Malik Willis, Josh Jacobs-led offense versus this Brian Flores-led defense. Like I said, we will get to the Monday night games on the Monday show. Jay, anything else you want to touch on before we get out of here for the weekend? We didn't talk any New Orleans, Atlanta. You feel good about the Saints?
I'm okay on the Saints. We know they're going to be without their center. So that's going to be a bit of a problem for them. Taysom Hill is back, right? He's practicing. He is back. I didn't even put him in the show notes because there's already so many guys we're going to get to, but Taysom's back. Really like Chris Olave this week. I'm okay on Rashid Shaheed. Yeah, people got to remember with the Saints, they're playing against a team with probably the best safeties in the NFL. So getting deep on this defense is going to be very difficult. That's where Rashid Shaheed is going to struggle potentially when you talk about the high upsides. That's why I like Olave a lot more. But yeah, no other news on the Saints. Kamara is back in practice. He's ready to go. It's really just that offensive line for the Saints that could struggle.
Man, the Saints pass defense, holy hell, man. Legit.
Well, we'll see, right? They didn't look very good against the Eagles, and the Eagles didn't really have all their playmakers.
Eagles didn't score a lot. They didn't score any points. Saints passing defense, according to Next Gen Stats, pretty good.
That's the struggle with anyone outside of London. I still like London because of volume, but Kirk could struggle in this game.
I like Mooney. I made a bet on Mooney. I talked about him on the usage video. I like what Mooney's doing in that offense. That is one of the things I'm very curious to see play out is the distribution of usage between Mooney and Drake London moving forward. I want to see if there's some more separation or if they're going to kind of yo-yo back and forth. It's going to be a London week and then a Mooney week, and then it'll be 2 London weeks, and then it'll be a Mooney week. So very interested from a Trinity perspective, a usage perspective on that situation. A couple of other situations that I'm looking at. I'm very curious to see, is Kareem Hunt active this week for Kansas City?
I believe he will be active. Yes, he's already been signed to the roster. Like
Yeah,
he's already been put on the roster, so he should be
I
active. The question is usage versus Carson Steele.
exactly. So I want to see, because Steele got all the between the 20s work and the red zone work. It was P-Ron in the receiving game. How does Kareem Hunt come in and kind of muddy up the waters a little bit? I think that's going to be something interesting to follow. Pittsburgh and Indianapolis, we didn't talk about them. I don't feel good about any Colts versus this defense. A part of me wanted to say, is Jonathan Taylor sneaky because they're just going to run the ball? And
I like Jonathan Taylor a lot. He's been so good this year.
Yeah,
so good. I have him ranked very aggressively.
I think he can find success even against a tough Pittsburgh defense. And I'm praying, fingers crossed, this is breakout George Pickens game. This Indy defense is exploitable against the pass. It is. We just saw Caleb Williams throw for 500 yards on this defense. If it's going to happen, this is a great matchup for Pickens to do it. We know the volume from Fields hasn't been there, and Indianapolis's rush defense is actually pretty decent. So hopefully it puts Fields in a situation where he's got to throw the ball. Bo Nix versus Aaron Rodgers. Jay, what do you got out of this game?
Man. Can A-Rod be a top 12 quarterback? Because I think Bo Nix can if he runs, but I'm not expecting him to pass his way to relevancy, that's for sure. The question is, can Rodgers be as efficient as he was this past week? And then, Ray, I was talking with my parents yesterday, the Nathaniel Hackett revenge game. How you like that?
Oh, yeah.
With A-Rod, yeah. So do they put up the points?
I don't believe this porous Broncos offense is going to be able to do much against this difficult Jets defense. Now, the problem is the Broncos defense isn't bad either, but I do not believe that Bo Nix, as you said, will be a top 12 option. No, thank you. I will pass on that. Final game that we need to discuss, Texans versus your boy Trevor Lawrence. Jacksonville is 0-3, Houston 2-1. They have no weapons. Is this Stephon Diggs smash territory? No Nico Collins. If he doesn't play, Tank Dell doesn't look like he's going to play. No Mixon. It's just Akers, C.J. Stroud, Old Man Diggs, and Dalton Schultz. What do you like from Houston, and what do you like from Jacksonville?
Yeah, I love Diggs and I love Nico Collins. I think he is going to play. We'll see. I have to monitor the practice reports on him, but he does have a lot of lines up on the books right now, so I think a lot of people are expecting him to play, but we'll see if that does change. I think if it does change, that's where, this is where Jacksonville's defense is awful, man. It's really bad.
When we did the ranks, I had Nico 1. When we initially did him, I had him at 1 wide receiver.
I think I had him at 2, and I dropped him down because of the injury.
This is such an exploitable matchup against the Jags. We need downfield Nico, Alpha X Nico, Trinity Fine Nico. We need him on the field. This is a very exploitable matchup. If it is just Diggs, I will be very aggressive and move Diggs up. Where do I have him ranked right now? I've got Diggs.
I think I've got Diggs at
9.
Well, we both got both of them in the top 10. Yeah, I got Diggs at 9. And then I have Collins at 6, and you have Collins at 4. Really just because of the injury. He'd be up at probably 2 if he wasn't a little bit banged up.
All right. We got to get these videos recorded. Rankings videos will be up later today. We got a trade show that's dropping on the channel on Sunday. I've got a college football mock that's going to come out this week now that we got some more data. A lot of movement in the old college football ranks, Jay. There's some new faces inside the top 5. We got a nice receiver out of Ole Miss, Trey Harris. Y'all don't know who Trey Harris is. Top 5 receiver in this class. And we've got some running back movement. There's been some pretty pathetic running back performances and some we got to make some changes, Jay Rich. Anything you want to say to people before we get out of here, baby?
I just can't wait to see your ranking of Carson Beck after he gets slaughtered by the Tide. We're rolling with the Tide this week, right, Ray? We're not going with Georgia. We're rolling with the Tide.
Yeah, we're rolling Tide. We're rolling Tide this week. I've got my own problems out at USC that we got to deal with, but we'll roll with the Tide this weekend. Hit the music, Jay. Hit the music, man. Hit the music. Appreciate everybody being in the building. Jeff, have a good weekend. I hope your fantasy games go well. Jimbo, appreciate you being in the building. MB Prof, Big Steve-O, Long Beach Native, my girl Joe, Rhonda Commander, all the people that tapped in live, all the people that are going to listen after the fact.
Everyone's putting in the comments.
Huh? What'd you say?
Everyone's putting the Kareem Hunt thing in the comments, and I definitely heard it.
Wait. What did I say?
Yeah, we won't talk about what you said, but it was.
What did I say? Kareem? Oh, did I say Kareem and then C-U-N-T? I called him Kareem.
You definitely. You did.
Stop. I did.
I was like, what?
I really said that. Damn, man.
I'm sorry to derail the show,
Yeah.
but that was so funny.
Get out of here, man. Yeah. No problems in Austin. Marcus talking about them UT Longhorns. Arch Manning. Let's get it.
Arch.
All right.
Arch starting again?
Yeah, I think Quinn is still hurt. All right, you derailed me from my snafu of wordplay, but we appreciate all of y'all tapping in this week. It was a fun one. Enjoy it, man. We're already in week 4. So enjoy it. It'll be over before we know it. Have fun this weekend, and make sure y'all wake y'all asses up with me and Jay on Monday morning. We out. Peace. Well, I gotta hit the outro, so we're not out yet. Come on, Jay. Ah, damn, man. You got me all flustered, Jay.